Hi, hello, and welcome or welcome back. I suppose we might have a slightly longer video today. I'm not 100% sure because we are delving into two books as we look into the most recent books by Beth O'Leary, that being The No-Show and The Road Trip. Should I be focusing on SEO and doing some spooky horror and Halloween type books to then maybe bring more people onto my channel? Maybe, but look, we're doing a Halloween video next week and that's probably fine. At some point I will actually dedicate myself to doing forethought and planning and do some seasonally appropriate videos. But look how that went when I tried to do something for Women's History Month. I ended up getting COVID, so because women give you COVID, that's how it works. I'm the next Andrew Tate, but all I'm going to talk about is absolute, not even stuff that you can pretend makes sense in a kind of, oh, you were raised conservative. Absolute drivel, just, yeah, if you hang out with a woman, you will get COVID. That's how it works. Look, let's get on with the book reviews, shall we? So, first up, The Road Trip. I'm going to be honest, every other Beth O'Leary book I have read has been a firm favourite, usually making it close to or making it into my top 10 at the end of the year. This is the one case where that isn't true. I'll start this off by saying two things. One, no spoilers for this book or for The No-Show. And two, content warnings. I will do separate content warnings at the beginning of the No-Show section of the review. But if those are the sort of things, either of those topics, that you are unable to deal with, then this book certainly isn't for you. Right, on to the meat of the review then. Look, I understand, obviously, that fiction isn't reality, groundbreaking, but sometimes you read a romance book and you see one of the romantic leads and you have this feeling where it's like, if I did meet you in real life, I'd think you're insufferable, and that really dampens your enjoyment for the rest of the book. And Dylan is, I would say, a pretty common romantic lead type. He writes poetry, he likes a lot of classic literature and theatre, he's got a broody thing going on, and he's got an excess of time because he's got daddy's money, and all of that can sound quite fun because it sounds like they're the sort of person that would get to know you perhaps on a deeper level and maybe write some poetry about you or something. I get it. The issue is it doesn't track, and look, he doesn't know what work is. He's deeply pretentious. If he's stable, his friends aren't, or the other way around, and you can't ever shift the feeling that he either doesn't vote because he lives in an area where there's a really safe Tory seat, or if he does vote, he votes Tory for financial reasons because he needs to be able to keep hold of daddy's money. But then he'll tell the gay people in his life that he really supports them and he's really happy for them, despite, voting for the people that actively want to take their rights away. You know the kind of person that I'm on about? Now look, not all of that is explicitly backed up within the book, but I'll be honest, it's only the Tory thing that isn't explicitly backed up. That's just a gut feeling. And like I said, it's hard to enjoy a romance book where one of the romantic leads is insufferable. And look, I get it. His relationship with his dad genuinely does seem difficult because it's a lot of pressure. However, I cannot feel sorry for a man whose biggest problem seems to be, Daddy's going to cut all of my money off, and now I'm going to have to work at a bar to fund my masters. Oh, you mean like thousands of other fucking people do? Give a fuck. Like, I'm sorry, am I meant to feel sorry for you? Oh, do you have to work at a bar? Oh, baby, that must be so hard for you. Oh, poor soul. No, piss off. Like, guaranteed, Dylan would have been in the queue to go and see the Queen after she died. He's absolutely that type of person. I mean, I'll be totally honest, it wasn't just him. I think out of the entire cast of characters, the main cast of characters, I think I only liked Deb. And the only side characters that I liked, really, were the kind of strange but fun truck driver, Kevin I think he was called, and Addie and Deb's parents, because they're sweet, they're just like normal people. I mean, for a start, of the main host of characters, pretty much everybody, aside from Addie and Deb, apart from those two, everybody's a bit of a toff, makes them hard to like, just on a moral basis. And then you've got a guy who is just a massive creep. I mean, well, actually, at first he's just a bit wet. So it's just like, ugh, okay, fine, you're here. And then it becomes clear relatively early on that he's just like, there's something underlying this and I don't like it. Yeah, he's a fucking creep. And that's a bit of a spoiler, but quite frankly, not really. And then back to our main leads, you know, obviously we've got Dylan on one side, Addie on the other. I don't like Addie either. She's just relatively normal, but she can't communicate about anything ever. And I'm not talking about, in this case, the fact that she couldn't really communicate and talk about the fact that she was assaulted. That's pretty standard. That's a distinctly different thing, right? But every other feeling she has, she just can't communicate shit. And Dylan's also not great at communicating either. So it means that their relationship, both in the past sections and the present sections, just seem completely shit. Like, I don't want to see that relationship blossom because, what, just because they love each other? There's far more to an actual stable relationship than just, I really love you and I really love you too. I don't care that I'm reading fiction. I need to believe it a little bit. I'm not reading a children's story. And when it comes to Marcus, I'm aware that he's meant to be a bit of a, and just like more so when he was, and just more so in the past sections, a little bit less in the present. I think he's meant to just be a bit snarky and rude versus kind of toxic because he's going through a mental spiral, but also one that, like, I can't do spoilers, but it's a bit like, it's just jealousy. And again, if you'd have just communicated this clearly, then perhaps you would not be in the situation you're in. All of this book is just miscommunication central, and how am I supposed to enjoy that? Because it's just like, sometimes, I've spoken about this before, I was speaking about the American Roommate Experiment. There's a couple parts in that, and it's a bit of a running theme where you're just going that, oh my god, but just like, say it. But it feels exciting in that because you're feeling the reasons why characters can't bring that part of them out yet. You understand why they're not saying those things. In this, it's just like, what are you losing by not saying something? You are just irritating. And just with Marcus, he's around for so much of the book, and whenever he's there, I just feel like I want space from him. And it's clear that between the earlier moments in their life and the current sections of their life, it's clear that he's at least tried to get help, but he doesn't seem like he can be redeemed in any way. He's still a dick. And it seems like O'Leary tries to redeem him at the wedding, but it's one action compared to everything else I've seen within the book. And I understand that that can be a kind of, look, he's trying to make improvements. No. But yeah, sure, I'm sure he is trying to make improvements, but I needed to see that side of him more, even if there were moments when they're in the car in the present day, even if generally he was a little bit snippy. I needed to see him be a lot better and actively trying to be better, rather than being, oh, it's so hard being a good person. Like, fucking don't be then. Just be a... Like, if you're gonna be one. Don't just... Don't just pretend like you're trying to be good now. It's just insufferable. I was just not vibing with this book at all. The concept itself really did seem fun, and it certainly had its fun moments, but overall it just wasn't working for me. But don't give up on Beth O'Leary if this is either the only or the last book of hers that you've read. If you have only read this one, I'd say start with I'd say read the rest in order. You don't have to, they're not continuous or anything, but you can read them in any order you like, quite frankly. But I would say that, disregarding this one, her other 3 books have shown a real progression in her writing style. If I'd have read this first, I probably wouldn't have read her other stuff, but trust me, give the rest a go. And if you've read any of her other books, read this one and then went, no, read the rest. Trust me, the rest are brilliant. Speaking of her other brilliant books, let's get on to the no-show. So, warnings for this book. We have depictions of self-harm, what appears to be either derealization or dissociation, and I'm not trying to be, a psychiatrist here. It was a speaking from my own experience, that's what that looked like. So for want of a better phrase, there is workplace sexual misconduct, harassment. It's hard to explain without having read the book, and I don't want to spoil the book too much, but I think that's enough of a warning. And there is also a depiction of dementia in this. I don't know if that's something that I would put in a warning usually, but I feel like there's just so much going on within this book, it's worth pointing out. And I also understand that for a lot of people, if they're currently living with a loved one who is going through that, then it might be a bit difficult to be reading that within a book when it's not the right time for that sort of thing. And yeah, like I said, there is a lot going on here, and I just want to get it, without spoiling, still get it all out in the open, just to make sure that you are in the right headspace for this book. Because let me tell you, this book was a roller coaster. Now, usually I organise my notes a bit more when I'm scripting, because I usually, put some other subjects together, expand on certain things that I've only written short notes about, all that good stuff. But here, that was a bit more difficult. A, because I have to avoid spoilers, but B, because if you saw my notes, then you would see it would look like I'm reviewing 2 different books. At a certain point, it would look like I'm reviewing 2 completely different books with the way I talk about characters, because I would say it would be within a chapter or 2 that you end up looking at the people within the book in a very, very different light. And I was just, because there's a particular character that I distinctly disliked. You're supposed to an extent, dislike him up to that point. And it's done so well, because I was reading it and I was like, wait, what? Wait. And then as I'm going through towards the end of the book, it's all this more, wait, fuck, what? O'Leary just delivered this twist masterfully. I am so here for it. I'm not usually a fan of big twists, I think, honestly, because they're often not done well. It's so easy for it to seem like a surprise, got you, and it's just like, great, that came out of fucking nowhere. But it's not a, oh, that came out of nowhere, okay, I guess. It was a, wait, but that explains that, and then all these little things adding together. It just, oh, beautiful. I recently read, you'll see it in a while for a big project that I'm doing, I recently read Murders in the Rue Morgue by Edgar Allan Poe. If you know the story, that's a twist done badly. Spoiler alert for that book and or my review coming up on it, but good lord. That's not how to write a twist, but this absolutely is. And I will say, this is a somewhat darker book than O'Leary usually writes. You can probably see that from the warnings at the beginning. And I know that she often explores some darker topics within a book, looking at grief within the Switch, looking at domestic abuse and racial profiling by police, both in the Flatshare, but it is generally a kind of one or two topics explored within a character or two kind of thing throughout the entire book, seeing how that affects them. But this is a really big cast of characters, so it's perhaps not unusual that there are more issues being dealt with. But O'Leary is still very careful with everything. She does not skip past anything too much. There are things that are perhaps that I do think perhaps could have been, if not deeply explored, not passed over as quickly as I think they were. In particular, the fact that one of the characters does self-harm. I feel like there's not a lot that is explored with that. I feel like it's a little bit skimmed over, but I understand that there's sort of a lot going on with that character, and that is a symptom of wider problems. And I think that in itself is explored. In general, you know, you've got the tact that you'd hope for, and most importantly for me, as somebody who reads a lot of romance fiction, you do not have the "my mental health has been cured because we love each other very, very much." And that doesn't surprise me. If you look at the Flatshare, that is very clear that it's something that Beth O'Leary does not want to fall into. And she balances lighter and darker moments really well. And that's not necessarily surprising to me. If you look at Beth O'Leary's, especially her first two books, you can see that she's balanced that quite well before. But because there's so much here, I was wondering how that would affect her writing. And overall, I would say this is not as light as her other books. This is a generally darker book. It's not a dark and brooding book by any means, but just in general using light and dark. It's not necessarily as close to being a rom-com as her other books. This is more sort of drama kind of thing. This is just a slice of life kind of book rather than being something particularly comedic. And going back to what I was saying earlier, just, no spoilers, but the way she brings everything together in the end is just divine. It's exquisite. It's just, I'm obsessed. The way everything just slots together like this perfect little jigsaw puzzle. I love it. I am obsessed. You gotta read this book. I'm serious, you have to. It's phenomenal. This was a kind of weird duo to be reading at the same time, and I do think it's clear that I have a firm favourite. I don't know if the No-Show has beaten the Switch as being my favourite of hers. I have this real soft spot for the Switch. It just makes me feel all soft and mushy. Whereas this one, I think this one, I mean, the story was brilliant, but it's less about, oh my god, I'm whelmed by this story and these characters and the way it all comes together. And with this one, I'm just like, the writing itself, like bringing everything together and the way everything just, very different reasons I like them, but they are battling for my favourite of hers. Next week, I will be looking at Night Terrors by Alice Vernon. That'll be my Halloween video looking into the strange goings-on in the realm of sleep. And I will say, it just so happens to be written by the woman who was my personal tutor during my masters. So that's fun. So, as you may know, I'm trying to get to 50 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm currently at 27, so anything you can do would be an absolutely great help. All the usual stuff, liking, subscribing, commenting, putting the little notification bell on, retweeting the video tweet, tell your nan. I don't know, just honestly, anything you can do would be a great help. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, a wonderful whenever you are watching this. Take care of yourselves. Right.